Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we decode the secrets of the financial world. And it seems today's company might be trying to outsmart the market with a little bit of, shall we say, procedural maneuvering. Get ready for some shareholder drama as we dive into Bullfrog AI Holdings Inc.'s latest filings, where changes to the rules of the game might just make all the difference. We're talking about shifting the goalposts on what it takes to have a quorum. And oh boy, did this meeting have some votes. Alright, so we're re-looking at a Form 8K filing from Bullfrog AI Holdings Incorporated, dated the 18th of September 2025. This is essentially a report that companies file when something significant happens that shareholders should know about right away, not just at the end of the quarter. Think of it as a news alert for investors. Now, before we get into the action, let's quickly see what kind of company Bullfrog AI Holdings is. Their stock ticker is BFRG, and they have common stock with a very small par value, which is just a technicality here. They also have these things called tradable warrants, which are like options that give you the right to buy stock at a certain price. And yes, their stock is listed on the Nasdaq Stock Market LLC, specifically the Nasdaq Capital Market. The company itself is incorporated in Nevada. So what are their publicly traded securities? Well, they have common stock, where each share is technically worth a tiny fraction of a cent. And then they have these tradable warrants. Both of these are traded on the Nasdaq Capital Market. Here's an interesting tidbit. They're checking the box to say they are what is known as an emerging growth company. This is a classification for newer companies that allows them to have some regulatory flexibility, like not having to follow all the new accounting rules right away. It is like getting a little extra time to study for a tough test. Now, let's get to the juicy stuff. The first big item here is an amendment to their bylaws. Companies have bylaws which are like the internal rulebook for how the company operates. What did they change? Well, effective the 18th of September 2025, Bullfrog AI Holdings Inc. decided to lower the number of shares needed to have a valid shareholder meeting. Basically, they reduced the quorum, the minimum attendance requirement, to about 33.33%, or 1/3 of the outstanding shares. Why would they do this often? Companies do this to make it easier to conduct business at shareholder meetings, especially if they anticipate lower attendance. It can help prevent a meeting from being delayed or cancelled because not enough people showed up. Following that rule change, it makes sense that they held their 2025 annual meeting of stockholders on that same day, the 18th of September 2025. And guess what? They actually met the new lower quorum requirement. A total of 5,999,72 shares were present or represented by proxy, which is about 59.50% of all the shares that could vote. So even with the lower bar, they still had a pretty good turnout. So what were the votes about? The first major item was the election of directors. They needed to elect 4 people to their board of directors, and these folks will be in charge of guiding the company for the next year. Let's look at the results for each nominee. William Enright received 3,061,579 votes in favour, with 25,331 votes withheld, and a significant 291,2262 broker non votes. Broker non votes happen when a broker holds shares for a client but has not received instructions on how to vote them. Jason D. Hansen got 3059342 votes for him, 27,568 withheld, and again 29,12262 broker non. Votes Donald Elsey had 3059674 votes for 27,236 withheld, and the same 29,12262 broker non. Votes Finally, Vininder Singh got 3059914 votes for 27,796 withheld, and also 29,12262 broker non-votes. So based on these numbers, it looks like all 4 nominees were elected to the board. It is interesting to see such a consistent number of broker non-votes across all of them. This often suggests a large number of shares are held in street name, meaning by brokers for their clients, and those clients either didn't vote or their votes didn't make it through. The second big item was the ratification of their independent registered public accounting firm. That is the company that checks their financial statements to make sure they re-accurate. In this case, they were asking shareholders to approve MindK CPAs PLC, or MIK, as their auditor for the fiscal year ending the 31st of December 2025. And the vote here was overwhelmingly in favour. They got 5,885,223 votes for ratifying MPIT, only 98,872 votes against, and 15,077 abstentions. That is a strong endorsement of their choice of auditor, and it means MIT will continue to provide their financial oversight for the year. Lastly, we have the exhibits. This is basically a list of all the supporting documents that are part of this filing. The key exhibits here are Exhibit 3.1, which is the actual amendment to the bylaws we talked about earlier, and Exhibit 104, which is the cover page interactive data file formatted in inline XBRL. This XBRL data is basically a way for companies to electronically tag their financial information, making it easier for computers and analysts to crunch the numbers. And finally, the report is signed by Vininder Singh, who is listed as the Chief Executive Officer of Bullfrog AI Holdings Incorporated. So, what is the story here? Bullfrog AI Holdings Inc. made a strategic move to lower their quorum requirements for shareholder meetings, and then they held a meeting where they elected their directors and ratified their auditor. The election of directors saw a solid majority of votes in favour, despite a large number of broken non-votes, which is something to watch. The ratification of their auditor was a much clearer win. To me, the big takeaway is that amendment to the bylaws. By lowering the quorum, they've made it easier to get shareholder votes passed. This could be seen as a proactive measure to ensure smoother operations, especially if they anticipate challenges in getting a high percentage of shareholders to participate. It is a move that can increase efficiency, but also arguably reduces the direct influence that a larger percentage of shareholders might have. On the flip side, the actual voting at the meeting showed that even with the lower quorum, they still managed to get a healthy majority of shares represented, and the director elections passed with strong support. Looking at it like Warren Buffett might, we're not seeing any hard financial numbers here in this particular filing, but the operational changes are significant. The key question is whether this move to lower the quorum is a sign of preparedness for future, potentially contentious shareholder votes, or simply a way to streamline governance. The consistent broken non-votes in the director elections are a flag to investigate further in their financial filings. Are a lot of shares held by a few large institutions that aren't actively voting on these matters? Or is it a large number of small retail investors? Overall, Bullfrog AI Holdings Inc. appears to be taking steps to ensure its governance processes are efficient. The company is demonstrating a clear path towards making decisions and moving forward with its auditor, and the director elections were successful. The true impact of these governance changes will likely become clearer in future filings and company performance. Alright, that is our breakdown of Bullfrog AI Holdings' latest filing. What is your take on these rule changes and the director elections? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this analysis was valuable, hitting that like button really helps us out. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into corporate filings. You can also join our Discord community, linked in the description, where we discuss these things and more. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Corporate Decoder.